Bill O'Reilly here. Welcome to the No Spin News. Monday, January 17th, 2022, the federal holiday, Martin Luther King Jr., honoring him. And we will have some final thoughts on Dr. King at the end of this broadcast. So President Biden is off today. He's in Delaware. We're never off. Well, I shouldn't say that. Once in a while. But, you know, we're here because there's so much going on. There's a president's schedule. He's off. Nothing going on. Plenty of time to think. As Jen Psaki suggested to the media last week, he needs time to think, and it's another day for him to think. Now, we always think, even though we work, but I have so much to do on BillO'Reilly.com, The First TV, WABC Radio in New York City, which carries us at 9 p.m., and 300 radio stations across the country, which carry the O'Reilly Update. So it's hard for me to take the day off. I would have liked to. And if you really want to know about Dr. King, my book, Killing Kennedy, spends a lot of time on him. And I think you'd find that very interesting. So let's get back to President Biden. He has a press conference scheduled for Wednesday, marking his 1 year in office. Now, that'll be pretty interesting because the press, often in the tank for Democrats, has to be a little aggressive here with the poll numbers so bad. So we will cover it, and we'll be on live on Wednesday because the press conference is late afternoon. Mr. Biden's usually late. We don't know how long it's going to go. I suspect a half hour to 45 minutes. And I want to take my time analyzing what he says and everything. So we'll be up live at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, and you don't want to miss that. I also wrote a column, and it's called Call Him Mr. Blue, about President Biden. You might check that out on BillO'Reilly.com. It sets up the press conference, is what it does. Okay, so in his first year in office, Joe Biden held 9 press conferences. Donald Trump in his first year, 21. Barack Obama, 16. Bush the younger, 14. Okay, so Mr. Biden is behind a curve there. The reason is that things have not been going well. And Biden's advisors don't want him out there. And in 7 areas in particular, we'll put the first 4 up on a full screen. The vaccine mandate that he wanted for businesses has been struck down by the Supreme Court. That is a bad thing for Joe Biden's power. The Remain in Mexico policy has been ordered by the federal court. I'm sure you know that President Biden, his first day of office, opened the borders. That has led to catastrophe. Now he's being ordered to go back to the Trump Remain in Mexico policy. Then Afghanistan, I don't have to go over it again. You know what it is. And same thing with inflation. Everybody's getting hurt. Also, Build Back Better is not going to happen. As Bush, the elder, would say, not going to happen. Surge in COVID, certainly not helping President Biden. And now changing the election laws to have the federal government get more supervision is not going to happen either. So the only thing I can see in his first year in office is the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill that passed. That did help people. I know people it helped. It's a lot of money, but it was necessary in this day and age. The $1 trillion infrastructure bill, we don't know yet. We don't know how that's going to work. He got it done with the help of Mitch McConnell, but we don't know. But the COVID relief bill, that helped. Now, even the left is getting nervous about Joe Biden. Roll the tape.
Where was Biden's political savvy and the judgment of those who advise him? What made them think that a fire and brimstone speech delivered in Atlanta would reach its intended audience of 2, a senator in West Virginia and another from Arizona? If Sinema and Manchin have shown us anything, it's that they're not susceptible to pressure from that kind of speech or direct appeal. The only way to get their votes, if they're gettable, is through quiet persuasion, not public bombast.
Now, Mr. McConnell is not a crazy leftist, but he does work for CNN, which is obviously in the tank for the progressive movement. Now, I did some research over the weekend because I told you I would. I have been saying that I think Joe Biden's first year was the worst of any president in American history. I was wrong. One other was worse, and that is Herbert Hoover. So Herbert Hoover took over in March of 1929. In October, the stock market crashed, all right, 6 months, 7 months after he took office. Hoover did nothing. Nothing. All the banks that collapsed, there was no federal help and no insurance. So if you had your money in the bank, you lost it. It was gone. You can imagine that. Now we have insurance. Not then. No entitlements because Herbert Hoover thought that was socialism for the federal government to give aid to people who lost all their money. Well, what were those people supposed to do? All right, all their money's gone. So Hoover did nothing and didn't help them. And then the Depression got worse and worse and worse, and Hoover is down in the bottom 5 of all presidents because he just didn't do anything. That is worse than Biden. All right, so I've got to be honest here. I think Joe Biden has hurt the country dramatically. But Hoover, he hurt individual people. And you just couldn't blow him out of his, well, I'm not going to give anybody anything. And then, of course, FDR took over in 1932 and did establish the safety nets that we have today. Okay, so that's where we are. Herbert Hoover was worse than Biden, but Biden's second. James Buchanan, going all the way back, was a disaster. He was the president before Abraham Lincoln who allowed the South to basically defy the federal government, and that led to the Civil War. But there wasn't one or two things that Buchanan did. He just didn't do anything. And it was a 4-year catastrophe, not a 1. Biden's a 1-year catastrophe, and it is bad. Are you looking for your next investment? Bill O'Reilly here. There are 8 reasons to look at the NRIA Real Estate Development Fund. Stable monthly cash flow payouts with double-digit targeted bonus returns. They strategically develop in lower risk, high demand neighborhoods. Prime new construction is short on supply and high on demand. Diversification is safety from stock market risk. They have a short and long-term strategy for returns today and down the road. Specifically designed pandemic-hardened buildings. They are 15-year industry leaders with a proven track record. So if you've been sitting on the sidelines or want to diversify, please start your due diligence at nria.net or call 800-800-1414. That's easy, 800-800-1414.
An offer of securities is only made by the NRIA Private Placement Memorandum. Read it first. Past performance does not guarantee future results. NRIA is a real estate development firm. Learn more at nria.net.
So I hunted around for the best guests that I could get to talk about this. And I came up with a man who won the Pulitzer Prize in 1987 for a book called Bearing the Cross, Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Then in 2017, he wrote a book called Rising Star, The Making of Barack Obama. He is a distinguished faculty scholar at the University of Pittsburgh School of Law, and Dr. David Garrow joins us now from Pittsburgh. Not a happy day for Steelers fans, but we knew they didn't have enough juice to beat the Chiefs. So, I mean, at least they, gave it the effort. Now, before we get into the history, because I know that you are steeped in that, you being a progressive Democrat, are you surprised that Biden, always considered a moderate Democrat, has run so far to the left, conducted himself in a progressive manner? Did that surprise you, Doctor?
Yes, Bill, it surprised me very much. I was especially disappointed in that speech that he gave in Atlanta last week that you have already mentioned, which was just not only downright unpresidential, it was unlike who Joe Biden used to be. Peggy Noonan had a superb column in the Wall Street Journal Friday, Saturday, detailing just how incredibly disappointing it was. But unfortunately, that's been of a piece with how poorly President Biden has performed compared to who we used to be. As your earlier clip detailed very nicely, this White House has mishandled its relationship with Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema very, very poorly. They should have been able to come to an accord. Senator Manchin.
It's the vision that is confusing me. So Biden gets into office, and he's got to know he won because Trump lost. They didn't vote for Biden. They voted against Trump. He had to know that. Every poll, every study showed that independent voters, which decide all elections now, had enough of Donald Trump personally, and they wanted some relief from that. So Biden they chose as a moderate. He gets in, and as you know, when you study the charts, the surveys, the polls, about 23% of Americans are progressive. The rest are either moderate or conservative. And then he governs to the far left. Do you have any idea why he's doing that?
I'm afraid, Bill, that one question we all have to confront is whether the president at his age is diminished compared to who we used to be. We've seen very little journalism, virtually zero journalism, that's looking at what's actually taking place inside the Biden White House. Ron Klain, Steve Ricchetti, other than Jen Psaki, the press secretary, we don't really have any day by day.
I did something last week. Joe Biden has a tremendous amount of power in the White House. Susan Rice too, but Jill Biden is basically telling Joe or directing Joe on how to conduct himself right now. But once you make a few mistakes, you would think that you would learn from those mistakes. So when a federal judge tells you, hey, you can't just dismantle a border policy, remain in Mexico, and let everybody pour in here, all right, then Biden said, okay, I'm going to moderate it then. And then he goes to COVID and says, no, if you're a private business with more than 200 employees, everybody's got to be vaccinated because I say so. He had to know that wasn't going to get by the Supreme Court, right?
They should have realized that they were going to have a big problem with the court.
Yeah.
I listened to the oral arguments. I've read the opinions. It's not surprising that the majority of the court did what they did in terms of the administrative law principles that were at issue. That was foreseeable. And I say that as someone who's pro-mandate, very pro-vaccine.
Okay, so you're a progressive, as I mentioned, and now you're facing, the progressive movement is facing Armageddon, because in November, unless there's a miracle of some kind, and I don't believe there will be economically, I think the inflation and the shaky economy is going to continue, all the Democrats are going to get whacked. And the Republicans are going to control both houses of Congress, I believe, and then setting up Donald Trump's run for re-election 2024. I mean, Maureen Dowd, and we're going to do more on this tomorrow, in the New York Times, is panicking and saying, oh my God, as bad as Biden is, we can't have Trump again. Well, you may very well have Trump again. And the progressive movement, what it stands for, is going to be annihilated in November. Do you think Joe Biden understands that?
It's unclear, Bill. I think you're quite right. I think where inflation is going, is headed, is a tremendous election problem. If China's economy continues to slide, that will make the ongoing supply chain problems that most all Americans are experiencing personally all the more dire. So it's 2022 is unlikely to be a good year for the United States. And don't forget Ukraine and what the Russian dictator Putin is threatening war in Europe.
I don't think Putin's going to do that because his own economy is very, very shaky. Okay, final word on Joe Biden's first year. You think he may be diminished and not understanding how his presentations are hurting not only him and his administration, but the whole progressive movement. Is that correct?
Yes. The other great disappointment is Vice President Harris. That wasn't a good choice to begin with, but I think she's had an even worse first year than the president. Personally, I'm hoping that Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, that would be my hope for a Democratic nominee in 2024. Someone a week or so ago had a column calling for a Hillary Clinton comeback, and I certainly don't want that.
Well, that was me. I didn't write the column, but we broke that story here after she began to cry a few months ago. And I said, Hillary doesn't cry unless there's something on the agenda. Before I let you go, I'm fascinated. I did not read your book, but I will. Bearing the Cross, Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. You know, Dr. King is lionized as he should be, and the federal holiday absolutely should happen here. And he accomplished tremendous things, but he wasn't a progressive doctor. You know, he didn't want equity. He wanted equality of opportunity. Do you agree with that?
Dr. King was in no way racially exclusive and was extremely open-minded about racial and ethnic diversity. Now, Dr. King was, in economic policy terms, a democratic socialist, but Dr. King would not be embracing the versions of critical race theory that we see being cast about nowadays.
Or quotas. And he wouldn't want quotas, I don't think, and he wouldn't want preferential treatment for minorities that got hosed in the past. He would want a colorless society. Last word.
Yes, King wanted economic change, fundamental economic change, but for poor people, poor Americans across the board, not on a racially identified basis.
Right. Hey, Doc, we really appreciate it. Thanks for helping us out, and I hope we can talk again soon.
Thank you, Bill.
I'm sure I'm not the only one who's noticed everything is getting more expensive. We are in the biggest economic crisis since 2008, with a government that's printing trillions of dollars. Consumer prices at the highest we've seen in 30 years. Inflation certainly here. And if the government continues its out of control printing and spending, the dollar could continue its free fall and lose its coveted role as the world's reserve currency. While paper money will eventually have a shrinkage in value, there are real tangible things that will always maintain value. So how do you protect your money, your retirement, your savings? American Hartford Gold can show you how to hedge your hard-earned savings against inflation by helping you diversify a portion of your portfolio into physical gold and silver. All it takes to get started is a short phone call, and they'll have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or put inside your IRA or 401k. Plus, tell them Bill O'Reilly sent you, and they'll give you up to $2,500 of free silver on your first order. So please don't wait. Call them now, 866-501-5201, 866-501-5201, or text Bill to 65532. Again, 866-501-5201, or text Bill to 65532. Okay, so it is a federal holiday, and as we said, top of the broadcast, well-deserved for Dr. King, who believed that all Americans should have the equal opportunity to pursue happiness. He did not believe on a color-based society or making judgments about people based upon their skin color or giving them special things. That's equity. That's Biden equity. Okay? Dr. King didn't believe in any of that because he knew that would create tension and hatred and would not bring the races together. That's the genius of the man. Now, I write extensively about Dr. King in Killing Kennedy. In today's world, both JFK and Dr. King would be canceled. to certain things they did in their private lives. Now, the liberals probably wouldn't cancel him today, but it would be huge. But both men, Kennedy and King, did a lot of good for this country, particularly Dr. King. A lot of good. And if you study him dispassionately, as I have, and you step back, that man had so much courage because he knew he was going to get it. He knew. Kennedy didn't know that he would be assassinated. Dr. King knew. So we honor Dr. King today, as we should. Thanks for watching the No Spin News. We'll see you again tomorrow. In a world that seems to have lost its way, who can you count on? AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. That's who. Now more than 2 million members strong, AMAC believes in the values that we constitutional people care about. AMAC represents courage, faith, and reason in these trying times. They stand for national solvency in a time of runaway debt, national security and sovereignty over unchecked borders, and they believe in the sanctity of life. These next 2 years are going to be tough. Now is the time to join AMAC. AMAC also gives you access to a wealth of benefits and discounts that will save you money, including AMAC's bi-monthly magazine delivered right to your mailbox. So please join today at amac.us. That's amac.us. AMAC is better, better for you, better for America.
Bill O'Reilly is back on TV and only on The First. No Spin News, every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern, only on The First.